Hello and welcome. This video is going to be a what sold video for me, and that is going to be everything that I sold on not live platforms for the second week of January. So that's January 8th to January 14th. And we're going to start with my lowest performing platform first and then get into eBay because eBay is my main bay. So I'm going to scoot over here and we're going to go over to Etsy first. I made one sale on Etsy and it is this vintage 90s Champion pair of track pants that I actually found at the bins. So I paid probably like $1.25 for this, and it sold for $16 over there on Etsy. And of course on Etsy the buyer pays for shipping, so I'm really pleased with this. And even a pair of plain black track pants can still find the right buyer. Ended up selling on Etsy. Miss Moxie is going to say hello to everyone as I flip her over here, because if I don't do that my butt will knock her off on its own. I found that out the hard way, or I should say Miss Moxie found that out the hard way. And let's go over to eBay and talk about the sales there. So the first item is this D-Day book from the 90s that my dad gave to me randomly on Thanksgiving. He's he's like, here, you can resell this. And I'm like, all right, thanks, Dad. It was just odd. If you've seen the stuff that's in my parents' house, you would understand why out of everything there my dad decided that this was the thing I would get to resell. I thought it was very funny. It did sell. It sold actually within 2 weeks of listing it, so it's 100% profit. It sold for $4.14 and the buyer paid for shipping. Still super random, but grateful that my dad gave me this to sell. I have talked about Casual Corner on this channel before. Casual Corner, if you do not know, is a 90s and Y2K brand. They are no longer in business. So if you see something Casual Corner at the thrift store or at an estate sale, it is a 90s Y2K brand, and depending on the style, I would recommend picking them up. They don't sell for a lot, again, within the $15 to $25 range, depending on the material content and also the style. But I have been picking them up and they have been selling. This piece I picked up for Thriftmas and it sold for $15 and the buyer paid $4.50 for shipping. This is a 100% silk piece, very 40s reminiscent, but also very cool. It was a beautiful piece and I'm glad that it found a new home. This is a vintage wool skirt from Harvey Bernard. This one was made in Ukraine. I mentioned that I was surprised that the one from Russia sold before the one from Ukraine. And apparently the universe listened and decided that the one from Ukraine also needed to sell. So this one went to a new home as well, and it sold for $14.30, and I paid $4 for this at a Goodwill. This next piece was something else I picked up for Thriftmas. This is a Madewell top. This was 100% viscose. It had like a little bit of a snap right here for modesty reasons, I'm guessing, and was a little tie waist. It sold for $12.64. I picked this up at the DAV in Gloucester for Thriftmas. This Pure Jill linen beach cover up I sold for $16.08, so I just sent off a 15% offer. I also picked this up for Thriftmas. I believe I actually picked this up at the bins. I'm not 100% sure. But either way, I either paid less than $1 for this or I paid $4 for this, and I made good profit in either case. So I'm really happy about this. I do like picking up linen, but those of you that have been here for a while know that I really love picking up linen. And Pure Jill linen always has sold consistently for me. This is something I will not be picking up again. This is a Ralph Lauren polo. This is the vintage Lyle style, and that rhymed. And this is something I picked up for $4.50 at a Goodwill 2 years ago. Back when Ralph Lauren was still an okay brand. That has fallen off quite significantly now. The only Ralph Lauren brands I will pick up is the Black Label, the Purple Label, and Denim and Supply. I will also pick up some of the vintage pieces, but they have to be pretty astounding, and I haven't found one of those in a long time. But it sold for $8, so did I make a tiny bit of profit? Yes. And something didn't go into the landfill, so still a win. Was just a 2-year long win. This is something I picked up at the bins for Thriftmas. This is a Life is Good t-shirt. Life is Good sells pretty consistently for me, even if it is damaged. This one had a little tiny hole that I had to repair by the Life is Good front tag. Someone still bought it for $6, and I paid less than $1 for this at the bins for Thriftmas. So this was still awesome. It actually went to someone who's like eBay name had gardener in it, which I thought was very funny. Gardening people really like gardening, just like purple people really like purple. Like, stick into those hobbies and loves and you'll be good. This is a pair of True Spec men's pants. True Spec is a tactical brand. It is a very low-end tactical brand, but I picked these up for very cheap, so I was okay with that, and they sold for $11, and of course the buyer paid for shipping. So I put in all the keywords, and I think that that helped sell it. I also priced it very competitively because, again, I paid so little for it. I priced it accordingly in order for it to move. This is a pair of vintage 90s breaker short. This one, the leather tag was pretty much toasted in the back, and that was pretty much the only flaw for it, other than the fact that it was a tiny size. It was the size 26. Tiny sizes will still sell. These are a pair of bright red vintage shorts from the 90s. And these actually sold twice. The second time someone actually paid for them, and that's where they went off to a new home. They sold for $14.87, and I paid roughly $4 for these at a thrift store for Thriftmas. Speaking of Thriftmas, I sold these two built tees to the same person. I sold one of them for $17, so with the pocket tees for built sell slightly more than the unpocketed tees, but the unpocketed one sold for $13. So I basically sold both of these for $30. I picked these up for Thriftmas at Diversity Thrift, and I paid $4. Actually, I paid less than $4. I think I paid $3. I think the short sleeves are like $2.75. Yeah, I think the short sleeves are $2.75. So I paid $6 and got $30 out of it. So that was awesome. Almost all of the built tees have sold. I only still have one left. But those sold quickly. That Diversity Thrift trip was very lucrative, so much so that I feel like I need to go back and see what else is there. But if you were in Richmond and you haven't hit up Diversity Thrift, I recommend going because I made a stupid amount of money there. But you have to look at all of the racks. Don't just look at the top racks, look at the bottom racks, because that's where I found all the good stuff. I just ruined me ever going back there, probably. But that was a great sale. And if you haven't watched that video, I will link that up above for you guys. This is a Sense and Sensibility Collector's Edition. This originally was sold at Barnes & Noble. This was a Barnes & Noble exclusive, and I picked this up at the bins for 50 cents because it was a hardcover book, and it sold for $3.90. Whenever I see these little pocket hardcover editions, I pick them up at the bins because I know that they will sell, because I have sold them consistently. I do not know what happened with my camera there for a hot minute. Same Diversity Thrift trip, I picked up this brand new with tags Lululemon piece. Sold within 48 hours of me listing it for $36. It still had the original price tag on it. It was white, and it was a size small. So white and size small things are both things that people at thrift stores tend to overlook. But this sold very quickly for me. I have no problem picking up smaller sizes, especially in men's clothes, because I wear a size small in men's too. So I will buy that specifically for myself. And I know that there are other people out there as well. So sold for $36, amazing sale. This is something that is a direct result of Money Pile Monday, which is a series that I'm doing on my channel this year, where I am listing 20 items every Monday from my death pile, and these sold from that. So these are two things that I've had for over 3 years, and I finally got around to listing them. And the reason I hadn't listed them is because they were untested, but they still sold. And they sold to the same person in a bundle for $33, and of course the buyer paid for shipping. So really happy these are no longer in my house, and they are now in a new home. So I have Sarah to thank for this giant bundle of books that you see here to my side. She purchased them for $29.48. Sarah, thank you very much for giving these beautiful vintage books a new home and helping me save them from the landfill. That really means a lot. I've mentioned multiple times on this channel how much I love both buying and selling vintage books, but also reading them. That's why I have a secondary book channel, which I will link up above and also in the description down below if you're interested in hearing my thoughts about some vintage books. But Sarah, thank you so much. And also, if you see here that I refunded her $8.96, if you ever see a refund on here and I don't say otherwise, I'm refunding shipping, because eBay gets weird with shipping sometimes, and I always refund overages on my shipping. So Sarah, thank you very much, and I hope you have gotten around to reading some of them and that you enjoyed them. This, I've mentioned before how much I love selling ephemera, and this I actually got for free in a hoarded house. It's one of the first really cool set of videos that I did on this channel like a couple years ago, and I got to pick a hoarder house for free, and I found a bunch of vintage New Yorker magazines, and this was the last one of my first set that I listed to sell. And it sold for $10. If you do not know, vintage magazines cannot be shipped any other way other than first class if they're light enough, or priority, because they cannot be sent medium mail due to the fact that they have advertisements in them, or advertisements, however you want to say it. So someone actually had to pay almost $10 for me to send this in a flat rate envelope, which is how I normally send magazines, especially the New Yorker magazines. They're thick boys, so most of them go that way. But save something from the trash, because that's where this would have gone. There was a giant skip outside the hoarder house, and anything that I didn't want that didn't sell at the estate sale that happened after I got to pick it, it went in the trash. So happy that I saved this. This I have my friend Ernie to thank. Ernie and Carolyn went through their closets before they decided to move, and they gifted me many, many bags of stuff, and this was Ernie. So Ernie, thank you very much. And this sold to someone for $10.50, and the buyer paid flat rate for shipping. I got whittled down. So there was somebody who literally kept sending me an offer every day, and I just kept declining it because it was half of what I was asking for. And I finally was just like, you know what? It's been 2 weeks. Fine, you can have them. I got them for free. You really want them, but don't want to pay for them more than what I think they're worth. So whatever. I got whittled down. Normally I just block them, but I just decided, you know what? I got this for free. Let's just move on. Let's both be happy, and you get the pants and I get you to leave me alone. So there we go. Like I said, normally I block buyers like that, but I decided to just be nice this one time. The next sale is a vintage 90s piece. This is a size, I think this is a size small, but it's like a relaxed baggy fit. And one of the things in the 90s that if you're selling vintage clothes, especially vintage men's clothes, and you get something that is from the 90s, you definitely need to disclose that is a relaxed baggy fit in the description and in the title, because otherwise someone will buy it and not check the measurements if you put measurements in the photos, because I put measurements in all of my listings, and they will be upset that it is too big for them because this is a relaxed baggy fit. This has measurements, even though it's a size small, for a modern size large shirt, for a relaxed fit modern size large shirt. So you need to make sure that you put that in the title in order to alleviate getting your return, because everything was oversized in the 90s. Just think of Jinko jeans, and then that's what I'm trying to express to you. So this sold, and it sold for $14.87, and I'm glad that it's gone. I just want to put that out there. Not all 90s stuff is that level of oversized, but there was a period of time going from the Will Smith Fresh Prince era to about like the late 90s, when things would be oversized. Once we started getting closer to that Y2K era, things started to tighten up a little bit. So just putting that out there. This is something I picked up for Thriftmas. This is a Figs technical set, and Figs is a scrub brand that feels very much like Lululemon, which is why it is considered desirable, because it is like wearing Lululemon, except it's professional medical wear. And the set I paid $8 for Thriftmas when I went thrifting with my friend Donna in Williamsburg at the CHKD. And it sold for $40.38. So Donna, thank you again for being amazing luck. Not only did I find this set at that thrift trip, but I also found my second pair of Rothy's for the first time in the wild. So Donna, you were amazing luck, and I would love to go shopping with you again sometime. This is a pair of Arborwear women's pants, and Arborwear is a great brand to be on the lookout for. It is in my friend Matt's menswear manifesto, and even though it is a menswear manifesto, Arborwear I have found to sell not only well in not only well in menswear, but also in women's. And this one, when I finally got around to listing it, because this was another item in my Money Pile Monday that I got around to listing, my big old pile of pants. It sold for $15 within 2 weeks of me listing it, because I listed it in my first Money Pile Monday, and by the second week it had sold. So Arborwear is a good brand, and it's definitely one that I continue to be on the lookout for. Even though I don't like listing pants, I will still buy it. This is another thing I picked up for Thriftmas. This I picked up at the bins. I saw this in the bin and I was like, how has no one bought this? This thing is amazing. It is a vintage 70s go-go dress, and it looked like the Earth's crust. It was so cool, except like in reverse. It was missing its original belt, but I don't have a problem selling dresses that don't have their original belt, especially amazing vintage pieces like this. And Nellie Dawn is the brand, if you're interested in looking out for that one. And it sold for $29.50, and this went to someone in Nashville. So I am sure some really cool person who maybe like moonlights at bars as a rocker or a country singer is wearing this somewhere. At least that's my hope. But it was a really cool piece, and I'm glad I saved it from the landfill because this thing was awesome. Remember how I stated, unless I state otherwise, anything that is refunded normally is shipping. That is not the case for this one. This is a set of the This is a set of the Anchor Hawking tartan glasses that I have picked up multiple times. In addition, Brett gifted me a set as well. I still have some, but this was partially refunded because the buyer was unhappy. They stated that one of the glasses had a scratch in it and that they wanted to return it. Well, I have buyer paid returns, and I'm pretty sure that if I approved the return and they had to pay $10 to send it to me for them to get a partial refund, they were gonna leave me not very nice feedback. So I just preempted that and was like, hey, don't worry about sending it back. I'm just gonna give you, half off, no big deal. Just keep the glasses or donate it or turn it into a planter, whatever. So that is what this refund is that I was just, don't send it back because I buyer paid returns. I didn't want to deal with it. I'm sure they actually didn't want to deal with it. They just wanted their money back, so I just gave it to them. I only paid $2 for the set of glasses because they were 50 cents a piece when I originally bought them. So I still, even giving that refund and the fees and the shipping, I still made like $5 or $6 from the sale, and somebody's happy. So we are good. Everything, like I got the positive feedback. They were happy with the solution. I'm willing to do that. You do you for your business, but for me, that was the best decision for mine, and it turned out really well. Speaking of Brett, I actually picked these up at the Richmond bins when I went with him. When I met him when he was driving back from FlipCon, we went thrifting together. So I paid $3.50 at the bins for these in Richmond, and they sold for $25. This is a pair of Free People mules. Super surprised at how many shoes. I picked up more shoes at the Richmond bins in one trip than I picked up at the Hampton bins in all of my trips I've made. Shoes are really competitive at the Hampton bins, and but I found a bunch of shoes at the Richmond ones that people were just overlooked. It was great. So Brett, I will also happily go thrifting with you again because you are also great luck. So you and Donna, A-OK thrift partners in my book. This is something I picked up at an estate sale for 50 cents. These vintage semi-sheer 70s disco shirts always sell really well for me. Yeah, I can see I modeled this one. It had animals printed all over it. Again, it was semi-sheer, so I was wearing a appropriate undergarment for that picture. But it sold for $21, and again, I only paid 50 cents for that. So 70s are still really in. I consistently sell things from the 70s, as you guys have seen in this video, so I'm really happy about this. Oh no, this was the pirate one. The animal one sold first. This one I was surprised that it took so long to sell, but I think it's just because it took so long for me to list it. That's probably what it was. Yeah, okay. Anyway, when I list them, they sell. This is something I picked up at the bins. I paid 50 cents for these because it's 25 cents a piece because they are little soft covers. And these are sewing patterns from someplace in North Carolina. These are doll sewing patterns, and they were unused. One of them had been opened, but it had been uncut. So one was completely sealed and one was uncut. So for 50 cents, I made $9.87 and the buyer paid for shipping. So happy to, again, save some awesome stuff from the trash. This is a LL Bean shirt, another thing I picked up for Thriftmas, and it sold for $10. This is the second time I've sold this shirt. I've sold it once in new with tags, which is this one, and then also pre-owned. So LL Bean I will happily pick up at the bins if I can get it for really cheap, because it consistently sells vintage or new. Oh, this is another thing. This week was a week of issues. So this Franco Mod pottery piece is something I picked up for Thriftmas, and I made no money off of this sale. And that is because this individual waited until 2 days after I had shipped the item to tell me that the address was wrong. Okay, so I had to wait 2 weeks for it to get returned to me, returned to sender, put it up for sale again, and they bought it again. So the reason why I'm saying that I made no money out of this is because of the fact that I had to return. I do a full return for the first one because it was returned to sender. And so because I had to ship this item twice, I made no money off of this. But they were really happy with how communicative I was, and also the fact that I was still willing to sell it to them again. But they're happy. They finally got it. I made no money off of this sale. But you know what? A vintage piece of pottery didn't go in the trash, so I guess it's still a win. And I got a very happy customer out of it. Maybe they'll buy something from me again, and I will make money off of that sale, and they will actually have their correct address. That would be great. This is a vintage Pyrex piece. This is Terra. Terra is a interesting pattern. I believe it was only done for 1 year. It's 1964. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. And it is glassware that was actually made to look like stoneware, thus the name Terra. So it has a weird matte finish. Some people think that that is dishwasher wear. It can be, because people ruin vintage Pyrex all the time by putting it in the dishwasher. But no, it's actually, most of the time it is actually just supposed to look like that. This sold for $12.64, and I paid $6 for this at a thrift store. But I think I originally bought this at New to You. I just thought it was a really cool piece. It's the first time I'd seen this pattern before in real life. And I was just happy again to save a piece of vintage glassware. And I just really like Pyrex. Not enough to like collect it because it's worth enough to wear. I'd much rather have the money. Also the patterns I would be interested in, I've never come across. So, but really happy that a piece of vintage Pyrex moved and it found a new home, and I still made a profit from it. And I got positive feedback, so wins all the way around. Much better than the last thing I just talked about. This is something from the bins I picked up for Thriftmas, and it's linen, so I paid probably $1 for this. This is a all-white Charter Club. Charter Club is sold at Macy's linen skirt. And I paid, you know, like I said, I got it at the bin, so less than $1, and it sold for $12.50. It did have a spot on it, which was easily removed with bleach. I don't understand why people don't put bleach on white clothes to get out stains. I'm guessing they feel uncomfortable with it because bleach, if it gets on anything else, can be damaging. But all white pieces like this are really easy to treat, and it came out right away. So I hope this person loves their new skirt, and it was a beautiful white linen skirt. Another item I finally listed from my Money Pile Monday, because pants are the bane of my existence. This sold for $12. This is a pair of cut from the cloth Merrill high-rise boot cut jeans. They sold for $12, and the buyer paid a flat rate for shipping. High-rise boot cut, still really in. People like the high-rise and the flare legs. Boot cut is a slight flare, but it's enough of a flare to where it's still in fashion right now. Another pair of figs that I sold that I also picked up from Thriftmas. I'd never found figs before until Thriftmas, and then I have found so many pairs of figs for Thriftmas, and almost all of them have sold. And these sold for $20, and the buyer paid for shipping, so this was really great. Thriftmas was awesome. Speaking of, this hat I also purchased for Thriftmas at the Helping the Homeless store. and it sold for $12.87, and I paid $1 for this at the Helping the Homeless store in Gloucester. Another item that I listed finally from Money Pile Monday, this pair of Pizza Hut mugs sold for $9.87. I paid 50 cents for them at an estate sale. This was like more of a nostalgia buy for me, but it still made a decent profit in my opinion. I know plenty of people that much rather have a higher ASP. You do you. This is me doing me. And I'm really happy about this sale and finally getting stuff out of my death pile. This is an international sale. This is something I'm pretty sure I picked this up at the bins, so I would have paid less than $1 for this, and it sold for $7.50. Somebody paid, you know, $30 for this to get shipped somewhere overseas with the global shipping program. So I was perfectly fine with the amount of profit I made, and I am more willing to accept a lower offer on an item if I know it's going through global shipping program, just because I know how much they're having to pay to get it to them. So happy to let this find a new home, and again, saving something from the landfill. Speaking of that, I also picked this up at the bins. This is a little golden book, Smokey the Bear book. This sold for $7.90. I have mentioned before, vintage children's books that don't have a lot of marking or coloring in them can be valuable. At least to me, this is valuable. If you got the first printing, this would be more valuable, like double digits valuable. So I'm really happy because, you know, I have a soft spot for Smokey the Bear. I feel like most of us do. And to find one of the original books from the 70s, I thought this was awesome. So this sold for $7.90, and again, I only paid 50 cents for it at the bins. Another item I picked up for Thriftmas, this is Zaya Active. They are an MLM brand, but unlike LuLaRoe, actually have a good resale value. And I know this from both Hustle at Home Mom, Ashley at Hustle Home Mom, and then also Kay from Passports and Pizza Pies. They talk about this brand and picking it up. And I picked it up for Thriftmas because it's the first time I found it, and this piece sold. So it sold for $11, and I paid $5 for this at Goodwill by my boy's house. And then the last set of sales I have to share with you, I have Leah to thank. Leah, I feel like at this point, a significant portion of your closet is now stuff you've purchased for me, so that's very humbling and I appreciate you. She purchased both of these items from me at different points during this week. She purchased the Everly piece for $14.87. It was a gorgeous green piece that had a peplum bottom and then had peplum sleeves. Gorgeous piece. If it was in my size, I would have kept it. I found it at the bins for Thriftmas, and I'm really glad that I went to a good home because, again, if this was my size, I would have kept it. It was the perfect shade of green. It was so cute. So I hope you love it. And then this vintage Peter Martin shirt that I picked up for Thriftmas at Diversity Thrift. It's 100% silk, had safari animals on it. It was just a super cool piece. And it sold for $35.88 because I sent off offers and she gladly accepted it. So Leah, thank you very much. I hope you love them. You have great taste. You've picked out amazing stuff from me. I think personally, you have great taste. So thank you very much for purchasing from me. And this was another amazing week of sales. This is a thick boy video, so if you made it to the end, thank you very much. And sales have been good for 2023. I hope they're great for you, and I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, bye. Bye. Hero, hero. Hero, hero. I wanna be a hero, hero.